So I've had this video idea brewing for a while where I wanted to make the Journey to the Perfect Classics Optimus Prime. Classics, Generations, Chug, whatever you call it. I was going to do that, and I'm going to wait until I get the Studio Series Commander class to do that. But as I was thinking about videos to make, I'm like, wait, we just got the Studio Series Bumblebee. Why don't I make a Journey to the Perfect Classics Bumblebee? Because I've been collecting Transformers Classics, Generations, Chug, what have you, since 2012, pretty much. And I haven't been there since the very beginning, but I've kind of gone through the main iterations of Chug Bumblebees to determine which one I feel is the best one, the one that's on the shelf. Because I have, how I do my displays, I don't display by toy line. I display by era, by show. So I have my G1 Classics collection, and I have one Bumblebee on that shelf. All the other Bumblebees are on their own Bumblebee shelf. And I pulled a lot of Bumblebees from the Bumblebee shelf for this, because a lot of these used to be the main Bumblebee for my collection, but they're not really anymore. It's very interesting to see how the Bumblebee figures have evolved throughout the years. It's a very interesting collection, that's for sure. And I want to start off with the G1 Bumblebee, because this is the one that everyone, all these other Bumblebees, are basically trying to emulate in a modern figure style. We are going to get the Missing Link Bumblebee here soon, and I do actually plan on getting that, and I'll do a comparison between that and this little guy. But it's not really going to be a Classics Generations Bumblebee. It's Missing Link. It's its own thing. But I just want to show this off because you can kind of see the look. You can see, you know, the head sculpt. This is the reissue, so it doesn't have the battle mask. I'd love to actually get a Bumblebee with a battle mask. But yeah, it's a very neat little toy. The transformation is very, very easy. It's pretty much just a case of push it together, lock it in. Here's your very tiny little VW. It's a very, very cute little figure. I'm going to transform all of these just so you can see. But yeah, it's a nice little toy. And we didn't really get a proper update to Bumblebee until Transformers Classics. And that brings us to my Reveal the Shield iteration of Bumblebee. And this one, this mold in particular, has a very, very soft spot in my heart, because I was looking through Google Images for Transformers toys when I started collecting, and as I stumbled across this 3-pack that you're seeing a picture of right now. It was a Bumblebee Evolution set. It came with an animated bee, a movie bee, and when I was looking, I'm like, wait, is that like a G1 Bumblebee? But like a modern figure with modern engineering? It was seriously my introduction to Transformers Classics, Generations, what have you, was looking at this picture of this set. And I looked into it, I'm like, wow, they're redoing the G1 guys. And I was super excited. And I was thinking, you know, oh, which one do I want to get? And I stumbled across a really good deal for the Reveal the Shield version, because this one had come out more recently when I had gotten it. And yeah, I love this guy. This was my main shelf of Bumblebee for a long, long time. We can go ahead and remove the silly jet ski thing. It's like a cool little jet ski backpack. Not really something I'm super into, but it's neat. It is neat. I will never diss the Classics Bumblebee jet ski backpack. It will always have a soft spot in my heart. But this turns into a little trailer and the jet ski itself. Very cute. Yeah, this Bumblebee is a pretty nice deluxe class. It's a little smaller for deluxe, but as you can see, compared to some of the later deluxes, it's still larger. It's got a lot of nice ball joint articulation, like ball joint at the head, the shoulders, the elbows, nothing at the waist. But he's got hips, and he's got knee joints, and he kind of has some ankle joints, too. So it's a pretty nicely posable Bumblebee. The Reveal the Shield version adds, like, the Bumblebee, like, Bayverse movie stripes. And I think that's neat, but there are different versions that don't have the stripes. I personally kind of like when Classics figures have that blend of Bayverse. So I kind of like this as, like, my Bayverse G1 Bumblebee in a weird way. I love the head sculpt on this guy. just doing this so I don't have to totally reposition the camera. Something about the chin being yellow still just really satisfies me. And I'm not going to lie, out of all of these Bumblebees I'm going to show you today, I still think this is my favorite head sculpt among them. It's a classics head sculpt, so it's very sharp, very clean, and it has like this nice modern twist to a very classic, iconic character. This is a great Bumblebee. If you want this to be your generation's Bumblebee, have at it. Even though, since it is a classics mold, you're not really going to get the most G1 accurate alt mode, because classic... You good, mama? You're playing with a toy, you're making your noise. People are going to think you're dying. Yeah? Uh-huh. Yeah. But if you're looking for a Bumblebee for your shelf that kind of has more of a G1 vibe when it comes to the alt mode, this is not going to be it for you. Because Transformers Classics, the whole goal was that they wanted to upgrade the characters and the figures and make them have a more modern twist to them. And that's pretty much what this Bumblebee did. It's not really any vehicle in particular. It's just a car. I don't really have much else to say. It's a nice one, though. It does actually have little seats in there, if you can see those. Overall, it's just very nicely done. And I'm almost done transforming it. I'm doing it kind of, slapdash. But I've got a lot of figures to go over. So here we are. Here it is in the vehicle mode. It's a solid vehicle mode. I enjoy it. I look at this and I'm like, yeah, that's a Bumblebee. It has a nice blend of being, a cute little yellow car, but also kind of a bit of a race car. It's got kind of that vibe to it. You can put this on the back if you're so inclined. Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite figures in the bunch. And like I said, this was my Bumblebee on the shelf for quite some time. So next up is this little Legends class mold for Bumblebee. And the reason why I'm showing this one off is because I know some people like Bumblebee to be very, very tiny. So for some people, this was probably their main shelf Bumblebee. And yeah, this guy got a lot of different releases and everything. This is actually one of the last releases it ever got. I think I got this at a Big Lots. This was released before they did Authentics. Authentics phased all these little Legends class re-releases out. But yeah, it's a neat little Bumblebee. You can see it's got a nice little head sculpt. The articulation's very basic. He's got like little ball joints at the shoulders, at the hips. You can kind of move the feet, I guess. They've done a lot of different decos for this if you want it, in a more faithful flavor. This has never been my main shelf Bumblebee, and it never will be, because to me, this is very clearly a Legends class. It's not in the same realm as what I want from a Generations collection. But transforming it, it's quick, it's easy, it's fun. I like it. It's a good little Bumblebee. I'm sure there's some people out there that will consider this as their main shelf Bumblebee, but for me, this just ain't it. It's just too tiny. It's nice, though. I do like it. Now, this one was my main shelf Bumblebee, believe it or not, for a little bit, because I decided to phase out the Reveal the Shield one, since during this era, like Thrilling 30, they were making all the little mini-bots in Legends class. This was the more upgraded Legends class, where they're kind of what we consider core class nowadays. And this was the Bumblebee offering. It's kind of based off the IDW design for Bumblebee, well, one of the IDW designs, and it's actually very similar to the War for Cybertron video game design as well. It's a very different Bumblebee. You can see the chest is very different, kind of War for Cybertron-esque. It doesn't have any windshields. He does have the wheels on the arms, if you dig that element of Bumblebee. He's got all 4 of the wheels on the arms. But yeah, this just doesn't feel like a G1 Bumblebee to me, because it's not a G1 Bumblebee. But this was during an era of Generations and Classics, where they were making figures that were more not purely G1. They did a lot of IDW stuff. I didn't really go over the articulation. You can see he's just a ball jointy guy. Nothing at the head. I haven't actually transformed this guy in a while. If I recall correctly, it's a pretty decent little figure. It's pretty decent. What does the... there we go. That's what the chest does. There we go. Yeah, this is a neat one. It's definitely a neat one. But I, nowadays, would never consider this to be the main collection Bumblebee. How does this collapse? Man, it's been a long time. There we go. Yeah, this ain't it. They did actually do a Cliff Jumper repaint of this. Actually, out of all the ones I've shown so far, they've been Cliff Jumper repaints. Except for the next one coming up, even though that did get a red repaint. Yeah, it's a very interesting Bumblebee here. He's struggling to fit together. But once we have him in his vehicle mode, you can see this is kind of a, a futuristic sort of tiny little race car looking thing. It's neat. It's definitely neat. I can see some people using this, but out of all of these, this is probably the one I suggested the least as your Classics Generations Bumblebee. Now this guy was my shelf Bumblebee just up until the Netflix one came out. And this is the, I believe, Titan's Return Legends class Bumblebee, and this one's really solid. This one's a really good Bumblebee. One of my main complaints are these panels on the arms. They just kind of make him look a little awkward, especially when you move the arms forward. He just has these massive panels sticking off. I wish they would have engineered it in a way where this was the front of the arm. I think that would have looked a little better, but I don't know how they really could have done that. Because the thing about the Titan's Return and Power of the Prime's Legends class figures is that they needed to be hollow enough to actually fit a Titan Master passenger inside. And, yeah, it kind of hindered some of the figures. But for this one, I think it did a pretty good job. You can see there's not really a lot of kibble, which is very unusual for a Bumblebee. Again, the main kibble is pretty much those panels right there. Articulation's really nice. It's got a swivel, ball joints, nothing at the waist, ball joint, hinge. Pretty standard Bumblebee me-do fare. This is a nice one. I would say this is probably one of my higher recommendations for a Generations shelf Bumblebee. Let's go ahead and transform this one, because I think this one it still holds up, in my opinion. This one still definitely holds up. I personally wouldn't use it anymore because I think we have more superior deluxe class offerings, but this one is still pretty decent. It did get a repaint into a red Throttlebot guy. I'm struggling with Roadburn. Was that his name, I think? I think that's his name. If not, oh well. It will drive engagement with people correcting me in the comments. But I'm pretty sure it was Roadburn. Pretty sure. What happens with the hips? What happens here? I think the legs need to, like, mega collapse. That's what happens, yeah. The legs do a really big collapse me-do. There we go. Yeah. The vehicle mode on this one is pretty decent, but I feel like it has a lot of weird little gaps and bits. It just kind of makes it, almost has like a Classics, or not Classics, Universe Ratchet syndrome, where it just looks kind of broken up. Yeah, like all the little panels and hinges on the front just looks kind of odd, especially those black hinges right there. It kind of gives it like a nostril look. Very odd. Decent little vehicle mode, though. Definitely decent. And like I talked about, yeah, it can fit a passenger. You can undo all of this, and you can actually put a little Titan Master guy in there, and you can actually have a little Titan Master inside a little Legends class. Very interesting that they decided to do that for the little Legends figures. It was not necessary, but hey, they did it. This is a very interesting one. This is one that I don't really consider to be a contender because it's very tiny. But this has basically kind of been retconned to be our core class scale Bumblebee, because this was released in a Buzzworthy Bumblebee pack with a little exosuit spike, but it was later re-released alongside a core class Optimus Prime. So to me, this is kind of like a core class scale Bumblebee. But I'm sure there's some people that see this and they're like, yeah, this is definitely my Bumblebee. I definitely want this. It's cool. It's definitely very cool. I enjoy it. But it's just a little tiny, again, for my liking. It's a little tiny. But it's okay. It's definitely okay. I don't have much else to say. Articulation's decent, which is actually very surprising for how tiny this guy is. Yeah, let's transform it. I just want to blast through this one because I don't really think it's a contender. And while I've been talking, I think I kind of forgot one that I want to bring out. And I forgot it because it's actually kind of hiding away. You'll see. It's not going to be the next one I talk about. Oh, it's going to be the one after. I do believe I forgot one. I'm sure some people have already been looking and they're like, oh, I don't see that one there. Is he not going to talk about it? I am. I remembered it. Don't worry. And I actually have something to address with it too. Because I was in denial about something, but I have definitely realized there's something going on with it. But yeah, this Bumblebee seems pretty basic. Actually feels a lot like the core class or not the core class, the Legends class one I just talked about. But it just does a few things that are kind of similar to the old Legends class. And it's a decent little Bumblebee. You can definitely see the front still has that broken up look. It's a very tiny little car. It's got a lot of little hinges and everything, but it still looks the part. That's a nice little Bumblebee. Let's get that little back panel all lined up. Yeah, I definitely like this one. If you collect core class or Legends class, I think this is the smaller scale Bumblebee for you. It's just not something I would consider to be main shelf worthy. Alright, I think these next three are the ones that people are really going to consider as their main shelf Bumblebees. And this one is the Netflix Bumblebee. You could also consider the buzzworthy Bumblebee, I think it was Worlds Collide multi-pack, where it was a Cliff Jumper retool or repaint, because this one is the VW. This is a VW Bumblebee. And I think that is a very huge deal when considering a main shelf Bumblebee. This came out around the time of the Bumblebee movie, so they had the rights to make Volkswagen Bumblebees, and this one's really nice. It does have one pretty significant issue that I think a lot of people have with this mold, and that is it's a parts former. This is a shield. Look at the shield, guys. It's totally just not the back of a Volkswagen. This is a shield, 100%. But thankfully, it does actually still tab onto the back, and it still looks pretty decent, even though you have these very garish little plugs on the top. It's a decent Bumblebee for sure. I definitely feel like they almost engineered this with the intentional flaw so they could improve it later down the road. But unfortunately, you know, improvements don't really have the same vehicle rights as this one did. I want to point out the color, because the color on this one is almost orange. It's an almost orangey yellow. It's definitely far less, like even comparing to this one, it's far less yellow than a lot of the other ones. And I'm sure some people have that as a concern, but me personally, I really don't. I have done a full review on this if you want. I've done old versus news on various Bumblebee figures. It did come with a big bazooka. I don't display him with that. I display him with his little gun that came in that accessory set, because so many of these guys come with so many of those bazookas, and I just got tired of it. But yeah, articulation's really nice. He's got a ball joint, universal joints. He doesn't really have a lot of ball joints anywhere else, because Siege and Earthrise and all that really does strive to not have ball joints for the sake of durability and stability. Let's go ahead and transform this one. I actually haven't transformed this guy in a little bit. He's definitely very interesting. Unfortunately, again, he is a parts former. Okay. This VW version hasn't really seen a lot of reuse. It was used as Bug Bite, which is good. I definitely appreciate seeing it as Bug Bite. But as a VW, you know, this mold was mostly just a Cliff Jumper. This was mostly a Cliff Jumper figure. It's very interesting how all this actually like moves forward. So you do like this big rotation of this mass, and like you flip the arms where the legs were, and you flip the legs where the arms were. That is very clever. I very much appreciate that design philosophy. I think they did a really good job with that. Does the head tuck away? I don't think the head tucks away. I think the head just goes right there. And then this, come on, there we go. All right, it's very compact. This mold is a very compact mold. It's almost surprising how compact it is. You can see around the back, the arms literally just hang off. And if you don't have that shield, I got some news for you. You ain't gonna have a full car. So if you ever get this guy used, and you're like, oh, it doesn't have the shield, that's no big deal. Actually, it's a very big deal, because your car mode is gonna look like trash. But we can add this. Those very ugly plugs literally just plug into the hands. That's what they did. But look at this VW mode. This is fantastic. There is a little bit of difference in the yellow plastics, but that's not as bad as another one we'll look at. I do have a repro label right there, by the way. If you're curious, that's a repro label. It's a very nice VW. It looks the part so beautifully. I would say for the vehicle mode, this is your best choice for a Generations Bumblebee. Unfortunately, this iteration of the toy is not very easy to get, because they made this a Walmart exclusive, which is absolutely insane to me. But whatever. Whatever. This is still a very, very valid choice. I can definitely see a lot of people sticking to this one. Now, this next one I forgot about because he's inside my Wheeljack. I just like him being inside Wheeljack, as awkward as that sounds. This is very heavy. But yes, this is the actually soon-to-be re-released Buzzworthy Bumblebee Origin Bumblebee. And I have never considered this as my primary Bumblebee purely because it is the Cybertronian mode. But I really feel the need to include this because it is a modern G1 Deluxe Bumblebee, and I know a lot of people feel that this is one of the best Generations Bumblebees you can have. Now, I need to address the elephant in the room. This came out during the era where plastics from Hasbro Transformers, some of them discolored. And I did a YouTube short that featured this guy, and some people were saying, oh man, your Bumblebee's looking rough. That's looking really rough. And at first I was like, oh, it's just where they painted the plastic versus the molded plastic. But I gave it a harder look, and I'm like, this wasn't this bad. I knew the color difference was there, but this has gotten worse. This yellow toy has yellowed. And honestly, looking at some slight color difference here, this one might have yellowed a little bit too. But yes, this yellow figure has yellowed, which is very, very odd. Very strange. It is going to look kind of weird having this one in the robot mode with all the rest, so I'm not going to show it in the main lineup. But you can kind of see here, this is his Cybertronian saucer mode. It's a very odd vehicle mode. But a lot of people use this as their Bumblebee because of the robot mode. So let's go ahead and transform it into that robot mode. I can never transform this guy without popping a part off, by the way. So we're going to see if that's going to happen here. I can guarantee you it is. I can guarantee you absolutely 100%. I've not put this guy in the robot mode for a while, actually. I mostly just have him in this vehicle. Oh, yep, there we go. There we go. Where did this go? Right there, it's a ball joint. Yeah, I keep this guy in the vehicle mode because I keep all my Cybertronian figures in their vehicle mode because it's the main thing that differentiates them from the main version. So that's why I keep them in the alt mode. But getting this guy all transformed, I've never really had a very fun time transforming this guy because it is so panel heavy and it does have a lot of odd little bits and bobs to it. But it is a pretty solid robot mode when you do get past all these little panels and things. I personally struggle to see past them. I definitely feel like this is the weakest of the Cybertronian figures. Jazz is by far my favorite, and this one is probably my least favorite just because of how panely and awkward it is. But given the design, given what Bumblebee this is, what iteration it is, I fully understand why it is the way it is. This one actually does have little hands that flip out. A lot of them just kind of hide that. The waist needs to rotate. There we go. The waist rotates. This chest moves up and into place. And then this big panel is going to flip down and tuck in right there. And here is our Origin Bumblebee in his robot mode. I don't have his accessories with him. I believe he came with a gun, and he also came with all the little energon or energy rods or whatever. This is a neat one. I definitely see why a lot of people have this as their main Bumblebee, because it doesn't look bad in the robot mode. It really doesn't. But I struggle to see past these big things on the legs and also the backpack. Whenever I see that, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is a Cybertronian version. And it would just feel so out of place for me to have this Cybertronian version alongside, you know, Prowl that's a Porsche and, you know, Lamborghini sideswipe and everything. It wouldn't compute in my brain. So I don't display this. This is not a main shelf Bumblebee for me. I mean, I display it, but it's in Wheeljack. Even though the robot mode is very nicely articulated. You can see it's got a ball joint right there. And again, this is kind of in the same engineering philosophy as Siege and all that. So there's no ball joints anywhere else. It's all hinges and everything. It's got a really nice ankle pivot and actually just really nice ankle articulation in general. That's one of the biggest highlights of this guy. It's a very nice Bumblebee. I definitely enjoy it. One thing I don't enjoy is the head sculpt. He looks kind of fat and derpy to me. It looks a little too stretched out. I don't know. I've never been the biggest fan of that head sculpt. It looks like he got stung by a bee, no pun intended. Yeah, I like this one. I've know people that use this as their main collection Bumblebee. That's why I really felt the need to show it, and I'm actually surprised I almost forgot. But for me, because of the alt mode and the fact that it's not an Earth alt mode, it's not a contender for the main shelf B. Because this, my friends, is my main shelf Bumblebee now. This is the Studio Series 86 Bumblebee. And I need to address the elephant in the room. Yes, it doesn't turn into a licensed VW. But Generations figures never turn into the licensed vehicle. They don't. That's not a thing Generations does, really. So that's not a big detractor for me. I see this Bumblebee, and I see a Bumblebee that is clean, that has a very nice solid backpack, that has the pudgy G1 look in a good way. I mean, just look at this head sculpt. Yeah, it has the pudgy G1 look, but it doesn't look like he's wearing a, early American founding father wig on his head. He has the Bumblebee head, and he has that, I can hear Dan Gilvezan's voice coming out of that face. That is G1 Bumblebee. Still not my favorite head sculpt. That's the RTS, but this is probably my second favorite head sculpt. The articulation is so nice. He does actually have ball joints at the shoulders, which is very interesting. But since this is a Studio Series figure, they don't have the same no ball joint rule as Siege and Legacy and all that does. The articulation's, again, really good. Ball joint at the head, ball joint at the shoulder. Very nice elbows. He actually has wrist articulation, which is nice. He has a waist swivel that fully functions and works great. He's got hips that move. He's got thigh swivel. He's got a nice knee bend. And he's got ankles that move down and have a really nice ankle pivot. So overall, this Bumblebee is, in the robot mode alone, this is my perfect Classics Bumblebee. I look at this and I'm like, yeah, that's G1 Bumblebee. It's got the black in all the right spots. It's got the yellow. Speaking of the yellow, it still does have the same problem where there's the different color of yellow. Like you can see his arm is not the same color as his chest. I don't think they're ever going to figure that out. It's so annoying. But he does come with his little gun, which I appreciate. You don't have to buy an accessory set just to get that. Let's transform it. Let's go ahead and transform this guy. I've only done this once before, but it's a very good transformation. I was really satisfied with it. So I'm pretty sure, doesn't this open up? I think one of my biggest issues, this really stumped me. Because you think that that's all, like one single hinge. And I was really struggling to put the head stored away. But the head is on its own hinge that folds in. That stumped me so hard when I first got this guy. But remember, I like figuring out transformations on my own. So that was a very fun little journey to try to figure out how to do that. It was a fun experience. I'll give it that. The arms. I'm trying to remember what the arms do. I think they just fold up, don't they? Don't they just do that? Then there's that tab right there. They tab together. I'm pretty sure, right? Pretty sure. This is just something about it. For being a small little Bumblebee, I still feel like it does a great job of just feeling like a solid figure. I feel like they've really taken everything they've learned from so many of the other Bumblebees, and they've just made the best one. I genuinely feel that way. I really like these foot panels. I feel like it just makes it more solid. It just holds the feet together way more. And then this is going to do the classic flip me do and collapse me do. Very classic, very iconic. And then the hips go down. It's just so well done, man. This is such a well done figure. I don't know who designed it, but they did a great job. Absolutely great. And one thing I love about this alt mode is that it's very stubby. It's a very stubby little car. And I feel like it looks a lot like how it does in G1. Oh, yeah, I goofed up. I'm like, what are these supposed to do? Grr, I hate when I do this. These fold in. These fold in like that. They don't just stick down at the bottom. I was thinking of another figure for whatever reason. All right. We pretty much got it. I'm going to reassemble it. You already saw it. Look at this little alt mode. I think it's adorable. And I feel like especially the striping on the front and just the angles and everything, it still gives off that tiny little VW vibe. I look at this and I'm like, yeah, that's G1 Bumblebee. That's Bumblebee right there. Now, sure, it's not a genuine VW. It's not like this, but it's not orange either. And I appreciate that. Again, you can see the different shades of yellow, the painted yellow, the different types of plastics for the yellows. It's so frustrating that they can never figure that out. But this is a great Bumblebee. This is so good, dude. This is definitely my favorite, 100%. It does have a little... I never talked about weapon storage for these, but I'm sure someone would point it out. Oh, you can put the gun back there. Yeah, I know. This is my favorite Classics Bumblebee. And thankfully, Hasbro knew that this was their winner, because this is everywhere in stores right now. This is readily available. And I'm sure that kids and collectors alike are going to absolutely adore this guy. So there we go, guys. That's pretty much it. That's my look at the journey to the perfect Classics Bumblebee. I think we've pretty much gotten it. I don't really see how they can really improve the Studio Series 86 beyond what they've accomplished. Sure, they might make one that is a straight-up VW. They might retool it to be a VW. I wouldn't complain. I actually hope they retool it to be Cliff Jumper as well, because I think this is a far superior mold to that Earthrise Cliff Jumper. It's a great Bumblebee. It's a great bee, and it's definitely my favorite. I would say to rank them, my top 3 are definitely this one, and this one. The Deluxe Classes ones. Of course, the Deluxe Class, it's the bigger size. Has the bigger budget, they're going to be the better bees. But if you want it smaller, you got options for smaller bees. You know, there's been Legends Class, Core Class, other Legends Class. You have options. And that's what this video is about. Showing you your options, pretty much. I know collectors that are just getting started, you know, I think for collectors just getting started, you have one readily available right now. Get this. But for others, you know, that may stumble across, like, the Titan's Return or a Reveal the Shield Classics mold, you got a lot of good choices, man. These are all really nice little Bumblebee figures, and I don't recommend all of them if you're just a collector looking for one. If you're just a general Transformers enthusiast like I am, yeah, pick yourself up these figures. They're great. I love Transformers. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Special shout out to channel members, as always. Thank you all so much for the continued support. Have a great one, guys. And I've got some Bumblebees to turn back into robot mode and put back on the shelf. Have a good one, guys. Bye.